Greetings and welcome to the latest episode of Everybody's Business, where we get up in everybody's business here at the National Entrepreneur Center. My name is Jerry Ross. I'm your host. Glad you're with us today. If you have questions that you would like to hear us answer on the air, you can write those questions to us at hello@nationalec.org. And if we've got the answers, we'll share them with you and we'll share them with everybody. So believe me, you may not be the only one that has that question. So if you've got a question, shoot it over and we'll get it on the air. Today we have Rachel Matson in the studio with us. It's great to see your smiling face this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to have you here. I learned a lesson today that I'll share with you. I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has to learn this lesson. If you don't know something, ask somebody. And so I was working on the internet in my house and I'm upgrading it. And that meant that I had to reconnect everything to the new internet Wi-Fi site with all the passwords that I had forgotten. And, I kept reading the manual and I kept working on trying to make it happen, knew that there was something that wasn't quite right and it wasn't quite working well, but, I'm going to get there. And finally I gave up and I called the 1-800 number and they solved my problem so quickly. They said, oh, you have to do this. And once I did that, everything worked perfectly. And what I thought was, I spent a whole lot of time trying to do this myself. Mm-hmm. And I could have just asked somebody. Have you ever had that where you worked on something forever and then it was a very simple solution when you ask?
Yeah. So I really like to cook. And obviously when you cook, you have to go to the grocery store to go get all those little specialty items that you don't know what it is, but you're going to find it, right? So after doing this for so long, spent too many hours at the grocery store.
Wandering up and down the aisles.
Yeah. Over the same ones too, that you thought you missed something and you're just like, no, it's probably here. I have recently given up doing that and I go straight to the gentleman or ma'am, whoever is walking around the aisle and like, can you help me?
Yeah, can you show me where this is?
Yeah, like for example, show me where, I don't know, cumin is or something. But yes, so it's okay to not know.
Well, and sometimes I find, and my wife will remind me of this, that I'm looking for something at home and it's right in front of me. And yet I don't see it. I can't find it. I get frustrated and say, Laura, where's my whatever? And she'll say, it's third drawer down. And I say, well, I've looked in the third drawer. And I go in, it's not here. And she walks in and opens the third drawer down and there it is. And I've been looking at it the whole time. And so asking for help is a good thing. It's one of those that it may save you a lot of time. But it's also a way to access someone that has a lot more experience. And so with our guest today, he's one of those people that I read his books, I read his information. It's one of those where when I don't know, he's one of those people that I can ask or that I can go read his stuff to find.
He's your encyclopedia. I remember in grade school, I used to go and they had everything.
Yeah, remember the encyclopedia?
What happened to it?
And it's Wikipedia today,
yeah.
Or it's called our guest. Who's our guest today?
Barry Moltz. He's a small business expert and also a speaker and an author.
Yeah, he's written many books and I have some of those. So he's one of those go-to people when you say, I really don't know, who can I ask? First of all, ask someone. There's someone out there that knows what you're looking for. I've never met an entrepreneur that wasn't willing to help and to talk to people. Go to your local business support organizations, Small Business Development Center, SCORE, one of your local chambers. There's always someone there with the experience that you're looking for that you can ask. So don't be afraid to ask. You're not doing this alone. And we'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center has made it easy for you to learn business principles from anywhere at any time with NEC Online. As a supplement to all the great resources at the National Entrepreneur Center, you now have free access to over 300 learning modules that you can access at any time. Thanks to the generous sponsorship of Wells Fargo and our partnership with The Lonely Entrepreneur, you can access this powerful online learning platform for free. Learn on your own time and at your own pace. Access product reviews and participate in weekly group coaching opportunities. Right now, the only thing missing is you. So check out our online learning platform today at nationalec.org. That's nationalec.org. Did I mention it's free?
And we're back. You're listening to Everybody's Business. I'm your host, Jerry Ross, president of the National Entrepreneur Center. And today's guest is Barry Moltz, a small business expert. With decades of entrepreneurial experience of his own and as a consultant to thousands of others, Barry knows how to get stuck business owners unstuck and moving forward again. He's a nationally recognized speaker and author on small business who has given presentations to audiences in size ranging from 20 to 20,000. As a member of the Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame, he's taught entrepreneurship at the Illinois Institute of Technology and has appeared on TV and radio programs such as CNBC's The Big Idea with Donnie Deutsch, MSNBC's Your Business, and NPR's The Tavis Smiley Show. He writes regularly for the American Express Open Forum and hosts his own radio show and continues to be a prolific writer on all topics small business. His book titles include You Need to Be a Little Crazy, Bounce, Bam, Small Town Rules, which I still have my copy, Your Reputation is Everything, and his latest, How to Get Unstuck, 25 Ways to Get Your Business Growing Again. I'm pleased to welcome to the show today, Mr. Barry Moltz.
Jerry, thanks for having me. I was thinking about when we were in the introduction. Remember when people used to get together and listen to presentations and an audience? I hope we can do that again.
I do too. I look forward to that day because that's how I met you. You had come to Florida and I heard you speak and I was in awe of the great practical information that you brought. So I can't wait to share all of your experience with our audience today. So let's start off with your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, how you got to where you are today.
You know, I started my career way back in the 80s with IBM. And then I got hooked on, well, maybe I should really have my own business because I had a manager at IBM where he used to have sales contests where first prize was lunch with him. And I always said, what's second prize? Lunches with you?
Exactly.
So I decided to go off and start my own businesses. And the first business went out of business. The second business, I was kicked out of my partners. And I was lucky enough in my third business, I was able to sell during the internet bubble. I paid back the bank out of the purchase price, $1.3 million. And my wife tells me I got her back just about the same time.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
It is.
Success certainly helps. So the third time was a charm.
It was. And then after that, my wife made me promise that I really wouldn't start any more businesses. So I led an angel investment group for 5 years. And now for the last 15 years, I've been helping small businesses get unstuck, either by presenting at conferences or one-on-one.
And so in doing that, who is your target market? If you're going to go out and consult, or if you're going to go out and speak, who is the perfect audience for you?
Yeah, it's people usually that have anywhere between $1 million and $20 million worth of revenue, and people that are stuck. Their business is going well enough that they can make a living, but it's not really living up to their potential or where they thought it would be. And most people get stuck in one of a handful of areas, usually in sales and marketing. How do I get new customers? How do I keep the ones I have? A lot around leadership and management. How do I hire and retain good people? Because most of us were never trained that area. And a lot around money. People are never really trained to read financial statements. In fact, a lot of folks are afraid of that. So what keeps them up at night is, how am I going to meet payroll?
And so without that information, without knowing how to sell, without knowing how to read your financials, it's easy to get stuck.
It is. I mean, a lot of people have enough success where the business keep going, but again, it's just not getting to its promise or why they got in business.
And so when you look at a business that's stuck, what's the first thing you look at?
Well, I really want to know, does the small business owner still have the commitment to move it forward, or are they really worn out? Where do they want to go? Because without the drive and the passion that they started the business with, it's not going to go any further.
Well, how did you get to be this expert in in bringing that kind of expertise to a small business company? Was that something that you read about, or is that something you lived?
It's everything that I live. It's like I said in my introduction, whatever problem a small business owner is going through, I've been there. Have you ever had the IRS come in and shut you down because you weren't paying payroll taxes? I have been there. Have you ever had the bank call your loan? I have been there. So did you ever have an employee sue you? I have been there. Did you ever have a vendor sue you? I've been there. So whatever you're going through, positive or negative, do you ever grow your business 100% a year? I've been there. I just don't need to mention the negative things, right? But I have been wherever you're at. And that's really why I learned about the solutions to get to the other side.
And that's what I've found here at the National Entrepreneur Center. I've started businesses that worked really well and were bought out by a New York Stock Exchange company. And I've started ones that I had to close down. And I'd done everything I could to make it work, and it didn't. And so when someone walks in our center with that deer in the headlights look, I say, I've seen that look in the mirror. And I do think that kind of experience is the best teacher.
I think so too. I mean, again, remember, starting in your own business or running your own business, it's a lonely experience. That's why it's great to have organizations like yours that can help people and know that they're not alone.
Absolutely. And I think that's especially important after this shutdown and people have been sequestered and home. You don't have to be alone. We have technology that can enable people wherever you are listening to this podcast. There is a small business development center somewhere near you. There is a SCORE chapter somewhere near you. So you can always connect with the National Entrepreneur Center online, but there are local resources in most every metropolitan area that are there specifically to help you. You don't have to do this alone. And I have never met a successful entrepreneur that wasn't willing to help another entrepreneur. Barry, what was the most difficult thing for you about being in your own business?
I think that in my second business where, I found these two gentlemen in the classified section of the Chicago Tribune newspaper. And I would say, if you're looking for partners, Jerry, you probably should not look in the newspaper, the people you don't know. And, after a year working with them, they kicked me out of the organization. And I think that was particularly hard. Now, I did feel a little bit of revenge when a year after I left, they went out of business, but that's a different story.
Well, you have that thing where you say, I feel bad for them, but, I don't really feel bad that I don't feel too bad.
Right. I think the most difficult part for me was making the transition from working in a large corporation. I worked for IBM for 10 years and having that brand and all the support around me into going into my own company where I didn't have the brand and I didn't have the support. That was really hard. Also, I think the most difficult part about the business is really the people, right? When you start a business, you do it all yourself, right? But eventually, if you're going to get leverage and truly have a business and not just a job, you need to get other people to do the work. That's really where the scaling really is. And a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time, hiring, retaining, and training the people so they stay and they're happy. That was the biggest challenge.
And I think that's a challenge that businesses continue to experience, because even as they continue to grow, even if they've attracted some really good employees, as the business gets larger, it's those employees who are training the next employees. And by the time it gets down the line a bit, what made you successful has been deteriorated unless you really keep an eye on that customer service.
Yeah, the customer experience is what it's all about. Most of us sell things that you can get anywhere. People want to have a personal experience with you. They want to be passionate about what they're doing, especially these days.
And so how does somebody these days, especially when we aren't getting together and we don't have a whole lot of that personal experience, and even if we do, we're only seeing a part of someone's face because they've got masks on. How does a business approach that and overcome that?
Well, I think that you invite them into your community. One of my favorite sports brands that I wear a lot of clothes is called Icebreaker. They're out of New Zealand. They sell merino wool. And during the pandemic, they said, hey, why don't you as a customer join the yoga class that we give to all of our employees who are all remotely just like you. So they're inviting you as part of their community to stay connected with your brand. I think that's really important. The same thing with Marriott Hotel. When people were not staying in hotels earlier last year, they said, hey, why don't you, we're going to show you some videos. We're going to take you on some armchair travel. So they invited you to be part of their community without really leaving your home.
And that becomes a personal connection to the brand. Some of the hotels down here where people here in Orlando, we are a tourist destination for the world. And as people began to hesitate to travel, we had hotel rooms. And so they were starting to offer them to the first responders and people to say, if you're dealing with people that's sick at the hospital, maybe you don't want to go home to your family, come and stay with us. Zoom providing free service for everyone to say, let's get connected. I love them now. I had never heard of them a year ago. And so while it's a crazy time, I think it's also an opportunity for businesses that are out there working on the front line.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many businesses. Listen, it was a tough, I think, 2020. We all know that. But I am really heartened, Jerry, by how small businesses once again showed resilience and adapted to what was going on. There's a AAA baseball team in Boston called the Pawtucket Red Sox. And of course, the minor leagues were closed down this year. And what did they do? They decided to open up the field so you could have dinner on the diamond. So you could go to the ballpark. There was no baseball going on, but you could have hot dogs and franks and cotton candy or whatever it was. And you could have dinner sitting in the outfield. I mean, to me, those kinds of things are brilliant.
I do too. I think that's a brilliant idea. And, when they open up and they start playing again, go to the game, support those innovative businesses. We're going to come back and check in with your ideas or your suggestions, your advice for a small business today when we return. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida has been around since 2003 and today is home to 14 business support organizations who have a single mission to help you grow your business. Through free business coaching, low-cost training, and valuable business connections, these 14 business support organizations assist thousands of entrepreneurs each year in starting, growing, and scaling their businesses. So why not visit the website at nationalec.org today or give us a call at 407-420-4848 to discover how you might take your business to the next level. And by the way, the National Entrepreneur Center is funded entirely through local sponsors, which include Wells Fargo, Orlando Utilities Commission, Regions Bank, and The Corridor, just to name a few. So let's get connected today and get growing. Check out our website at nationalec.org.
We're back, and you're listening to Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida. I'm Jerry Ross, and today we're talking with Barry Moltz, an experienced entrepreneur and consultant who has kept us wrapped with your experience and your advice for small business. Let's talk about pieces of advice that you have for a business that's continuing today and dealing with all of the uncertainty of today.
Some of the advice that I've really taken is really that we've talked a lot about reimagining and pivoting your business, but every company's got to go back and say, all right, what assets can I really bring to bear? What skills does my company have? What's really my secret sauce? And how can it transfer over to what a customer really needs now? So for example, one of my clients was the largest seller of office products on Amazon. Well, earlier last year, people weren't buying office products. And so I said, well, how to buy advertising on Amazon that turns into dollars for my products. I can teach that to other people, especially those that are having a hard time. So again, you have to think about how are you going to reimagine your business to meet what the customers need today.
And I've seen that with restaurants where, what they do is produce really good food, but people weren't coming. And so they're doing the curbside delivery. They're doing the outside dining in the parking lot. And so I think it's brought a lot of people back to the basics.
There's so many places in Chicago that I could never get a reservation at a fancy restaurant. And I was able to order out from there and finally get a sample of their food. So that's the silver lining I see.
Exactly. Tell me about a time that you're frightened in your business, scared about the future. And is that the case today?
I think that, we all know where we were about the middle of last March, where things just shut down. And they said, well, they're going to be shut down for 2 weeks. But as this continued, I was really concerned about what's really the future of the economy. What's really going to go on? Are we all going to be able to survive? I mean, I used to travel every single week, going somewhere and speaking at conferences and being on airplanes. And I was concerned, was my marriage going to survive being home all the time with my wife in a small apartment in Chicago? So that was our biggest worry. But no, seriously, and I think that was scary for all of us when you have an economy where people go out and do things and actively interact with each other, and all of a sudden everybody's at home. That's kind of scary. When I went to the grocery store in Chicago and I could see through the other aisle because there was no food on the shelves, to me, that was scary. But again, I believe that American ingenuity and American resolve, we got through it. And again, I don't think in retrospect that COVID-19 really changed anything, Jerry. I think it just made these trends that were going on go faster. And I think that's important. I think that now online learning is going to be just a staple that goes on. I think that working from home is going to be a staple that just goes on. I don't see people in the office 5 days a week anymore.
I agree with you. We launched an online learning platform because we thought people are at home and we can't have events. And we have typically 400 business seminars a year, and we couldn't do that. And so while we always had that online option for people, a lot of people said, no, I want to come down and meet with a coach. I want to hand them my papers. And to see the market acceptance now of that technology and being able to be coached remotely. We coach and train about 15,000 business people a year. We used to do that face to face, and now we're doing that remotely. And some of it has been, we knew the technology, we were comfortable with that, but now the marketplace is comfortable. Telemed, I used to go to the doctor's office and I would worry about sitting in the waiting room with sick people, and now we do it on Zoom, and it's okay.
I mean, it took a pandemic for Medicare to reimburse telemedicine, and that's been going for a long time. And again, here's a trend that got accepted because of what was going on, right? I mean, I would never think, I've been doing karate in person for 20 years. I would never think of doing karate over Zoom, but there's no choice, so we do it. That's what makes people change.
My wife was doing yoga over Zoom, and I thought, this is the creative small business spirit, and small businesses always find a way, whether it's going over, going through, or going around. They will pivot and find a way creatively to make it work. Do you think it's easier today or harder today to start a business? You've started businesses over the last decades. Is it easier today or harder?
Yeah, I think it's easier today only because it takes a lot less capital actually to go out there and start a business. Especially a service business, you don't have to invest a lot of money in computers or applications or things like that. You don't need office space. So I think actually it's a lot easier, but there's also, because it's easier, Jerry, there's a lot more competition.
Exactly.
So I think it's actually a lot harder to succeed and actually get a business above, say, $100,000 in sales.
Right, because you're competing with lots of people because the barrier to entry is low. What do you see for the future?
I'm actually really bullish about this year. I'm really hopeful that anybody that wants to get a vaccine will be able to get it by the middle of the year. And I'm hoping that whatever the new normal looks like, that by the fall, we can go back. The good news is whatever type of revenue stream that you created during the pandemic, in addition to what you were doing before, I believe that revenue stream is still going to be there. Those people, like you were saying, restaurants that create takeout businesses, those takeout businesses aren't necessarily all going to go away. That's going to be a separate line of your business going forward.
I agree. And I think that will be part of the real estate change as well. We'll see the office requirements shrink, but I think we'll also see restaurants saying, I need some outside space to make that work. We're gonna take a break, but we're gonna come back and talk about your life journey. Buckle up, grab your coffee. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Jerry Ross coming to you from the National Entrepreneur Center. I'm coming to you from my home office because our staff as well is working remotely. But we're working remotely to serve the small businesses in Central Florida. If you have a need, if you want to get connected, there are many ways to do that with the National Entrepreneur Center. So we are still answering your calls. We are still answering your email. In fact, we've been pretty busy these last few months, even working remotely to launch the new online learning platform in partnership with the Lonely Entrepreneur out of New York City, who had about 300 learning modules of content readily available. And we've made a partnership to make that available to you for free while you're working remote. So while you may be home working alone, you don't have to be alone, because the National Entrepreneur Center and our 14 resident organizations have one mission, and that's to help you grow your business. You're listening to Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center. Hey, if you have a question for us, you can email us at hello@nationalec.org. Give us your question and we'll either connect with you via email to answer it, or we just might answer it live on the air. So send your questions in. We're talking about business, small business, and everybody's business here at the National Entrepreneur Center. Today, our guest is Barry Moltz, and we're going to jump back in, Barry, to say, where did you grow up?
Wow. So I grew up in a very small town of 30,000 people in Torrington, Connecticut. It's the Connecticut part of Connecticut. It's in the northwest corner. And then I went to school in Boston. And then when I was 21 years old, after I graduated college, I got a job with IBM and they moved me out to Chicago. So that's how I ended up with Chicago for, ever since the early 80s.
So are you a Mets fan or a White Sox fan?
Well, today I'm a Cubs fan. I grew up a Boston Red Sox fan.
Oh, that's right.
But I'm definitely a Cubs fan because in Chicago, when we had little kids, we lived a mile from the field. In fact, my younger son, Daniel, who is 8 years old, he said, "Dad, if the Cubs ever make the World Series, can we go?" And I'm thinking, sure, that's a good bet.
That's never going to happen.
So in 2016, when the Cubs made the World Series, I was talking to my son. He says, "Dad, we're going to the World Series." And he didn't mean the Cubs. He meant he and I. So we sold one of our cars, bought 2 bleacher seats, and then we went to the World Series. One of the 2 secrets I'll keep from my wife forever as to what those seats actually cost.
I can't even imagine. And did you take your binoculars with you?
It was great. We sat in the bleachers. We had a blast. It's a memory that my son and I will share forever. So it was worth it.
That's wonderful. My wife is a diehard Browns fan. And so she's been saying, if the Browns go, we're going. And so I think we're in a similar situation. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, coming from a Jewish family, I only really had 2 choices, either a doctor or a lawyer. And I didn't.
Or a rabbi.
That's it. The parents only give you 2 choices. And I didn't like the sight of blood. So I was in college. I wanted to be a lawyer. But then I got interested in business. And when I graduated from college, I wanted to be president of IBM. And it was a good career for 10 years, but it was really there's too many guidelines. It was really too strict. And then I really got inspired by the people I met to start my own company. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
What hobbies or interests did you have growing up?
Well, I was always interested in the typical kinds of things, baseball and football and different sports. But, today, as I've gotten older, what I'm mostly into now is road cycling, mountain biking, hiking, and I've been doing Seido karate for 20 years.
And you've recently moved, correct?
Right. I've recently fulfilled my dream. And 2 months ago, we built our dream house in Scottsdale, Arizona. And are living now, I say, till the pandemic's over, because we have a lot more room here rather than a 2-bedroom apartment where my wife has to see me every 10 minutes.
and where you have to meet in the kitchen for the coffee at lunch. Was there a specific role model or a mentor that either growing up or through your career that you look back on and say that really made a difference?
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point, because if you talk to small business owners, you say, really, what was the key in your life? They say, well, I had this mentor. And so over the last 20 years, I've had a couple of mentors. One gentleman named Rick Mazursky, who's been incredibly successful in the consumer products area. It was always good just to ask him his advice and his perspective, because as they say, Jerry, when you're in the bottle, it's hard to read the label, right? And so it's just someone who's outside of your situation, they can really help. And so I recommend to every entrepreneur to make sure you have some people that you can just talk to and they won't judge you. And this can be paid or unpaid, whatever really works for you.
Well, and there's a saying that says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so I would always seek out, whether it was, I worked at AT&T, and I would seek out a mentor to say, how do I navigate this? And many times that was the difference that of moving forward or gaining that piece of knowledge that experience can teach you.
Right. My upcoming book is called Change Masters. It'll be out in the fall. And one of the 20 steps to actually make a change that sticks is having a mentor hold you accountable or just talk through it with that person. And so they're a critical part of so many different processes, Jerry.
And sometimes that needs to be outside your circle because the people who are right around you, they love you and they want you to be happy. And so many times they give you advice that they think you want to hear, and they don't hold you accountable. And so having that mentor outside your immediate circle is important as well. You're listening to Everybody's Business, podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center, sponsored by State Farm Insurance. We thank State Farm Insurance because they make this happen. Barry, I'd like to talk to you about
State Farm Insurance because they've been my insurance company for 20 years. And they've always been there for me. So I thank them too.
Well, I know they have the Rogers rate. Do they have the Moltz rate yet?
I don't think so. I wish.
Well, they don't have the Jerry rate either. So I'm working on that.
Next time I throw a touchdown, I'll ask them about it, you know?
That's a deal. If you could talk to any person from history, who would you pick and what would you ask them?
You know, it's a really interesting question. One of the people that I've always admired is Albert Einstein, because I want to know what was going on in his mind to really think those thoughts. Because I always think that a lot of really creative people, there's something off about us, right? In some ways, my first book, I said, you got to be a little crazy. You got to be a little crazy. You think about the Steve Jobs of the world, the Elon Musks, those kind of people. They are a little bit off. So I really would love to be inside their mind for a day and see what they were thinking that really got them to a place where none of us really get to.
I agree. They're on that third plane that you say, I'd like to visit that every once in a while.
I'm not sure I want to live there, but I'd like to visit there.
I would like to visit, but it's a round trip ticket. That's for sure. Before you go, we need to know some things about you personally. What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is orange.
And your favorite movie?
God, my favorite movie is Jerry Maguire. I just love that movie.
You had me at hello.
Exactly. You had me at hello. I could watch it over and over and over again on a loop.
Coffee or tea?
I drink neither.
So what's your drink of choice?
Well, you know, these days it's wine, but I would say during the day, it's just straight up water on the rocks.
Straight up water on the rocks. Do you have a favorite meal?
You know, I'm really into French fries. That's really, God, anything with French fries, actually anything with anything fried is my thing.
I think I'm in that category. Do you have a favorite cartoon?
You know, I really don't. When I grew up, I was watching a cartoon called Clutch Cargo, and I'm not sure anybody's old enough to remember Clutch Cargo. That's where the characters didn't move, but the mouths just moved. That's how far we go back with animation.
I remember that. Was that Gumby and Pokey era?
Exactly.
Would you rather give a speech or plan the event?
Oh, I would rather give the speech. Planning the event is so hard. I've tried to plan events. It's just easier to show up, do your performance, and then have everyone clap and meet them afterwards. It's so much easier.
And just keep moving. So if someone wants to connect with you, if someone wants to find your material and grab it, how do they get a hold of you?
You just go to my website. It's my full name, Barry Moltz, BarryMoltz.com.
Barry, I know how busy you are. I appreciate you giving us some time here today and sharing with our listeners.
Jerry, thanks for having me on and all the great things you do at the National Entrepreneurship Center.
Thank you. We'll stay in touch and we'll keep following you. We'll be right back.
If you have a business question that you would like to have answered, or if you would like to suggest a topic for discussion, we would love to hear from you. Just email Jerry at hello@nationalec.org. That is hello@nationalec.org.
We're back with some final thoughts on our interview with Barry Moltz. What stood out to you?
I think the customer service experience really stood out in the sense of just being personal with it. People remember that. So I speak with entrepreneurs daily. And so I think that's just something that I could have taken away from it.
Sure. And that's, I think, even more critical in this time of COVID, when people have masks on and people are social distancing. They want that personal connection. Every time I talk to him, I learn something new. It excites me and makes me want to go back and read his books that he's written. And I'm looking forward to his new one as well. I also thought it was kind of interesting, his color choice.
Yeah, so I always thought orange was the most hated color.
And here's a guy, it's his favorite color.
Yeah. I actually looked it up. It's not. Apparently you can Google it. It's some type of brown. Because I was like, I remember this fact. That's not a fact.
And so it's some sort of brown.
It's a type of brown, yeah.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
So Barry's okay with orange as his favorite.
He's in the clear. Yeah, he's in the clear.
You're going to give him the green arrow.
Yeah, he's
for
good.
Orange.
He's good.
All right, that'll work. For further discussion on colors, you can email us and we'll tell you about our favorite colors. In the meantime, remember that you are in business for yourself, not by yourself. And so you can do this. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Make it work today and make it work this week. And we'll see you next time.